Hi, and welcome to this live reading from Blue Summer Part 1 by Everly Taylor, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1, Lily. This has to be the absolute worst decision I've ever made. Okay, well, maybe not the worst. That probably would have been that time I drank way too much tequila, danced on the bar half naked, and woke up the next day in bed with some fuzzy soup named Ryan. The feeling of a furball lodged in my throat. I shook my head as I hefted my armful of garment bags back up over my shoulder. Now was not the time to take a trip down memory lane and reminisce on my poor decision-making skills. I dipped my head down to my shoulder and wiped my brow on the sleeve of my shirt before the sweat could drip into my eyes. The summer heat was going to be the death of me, and it had only just begun. Even a small breeze would be appreciated, but there was nothing but stagnant, humid air. I blew out a breath toward my forehead, trying to create some sort of breeze across my face to cool down even a little bit. It would have been so much smarter to load all of this in the car and drive the 4 blocks, but no, I just had to get my steps in for the day. The traffic headed to the beach on a Friday afternoon was insane, so I had convinced myself that walking would be quicker. Not to mention, if I were going to be this huge up-and-coming fashion designer, I needed to make sure I remained fit and healthy. At this rate, my steps wouldn't matter anyway. I was going to faint from heat stroke under the suffocating weight of all these garments. I had been way too excited to get a position as an intern with this amazing designer, and was determined to do whatever it took to get noticed. If I wanted to become a big name in the fashion industry, I needed to put myself out there and work my way from the ground up, just like everyone else. Damn, though, it didn't mean literally working myself into the ground. The plastic garment bags were slick with sweat from being stuck against my arm, and they quickly slid back down. I jostled my purse back to my shoulder and attempted to readjust my heavy load. Sweat dripped down the middle of my back, a tiny trickle that caused me to fidget as it made its journey down my back to be absorbed by the material of my dress that brushed against my skin. I tried to swing my long platinum hair back and forth across my back to create some sort of air movement, but only succeeded in shifting everything lower in my arms again. I paused on the sidewalk to switch arms and give myself a small break. People parted around me, jostling each other and muttering about me being in their way as they pushed past to get to their destination. It only made me regret my decision to walk even more. I didn't even care that I'd stopped in their path and inconvenienced them. I had lived on the streets long enough growing up. I had learned to not give a fuck about people as a general rule. All I wanted to do was get these garments delivered. A chance like this might not come again. Delivering directly to another designer was big, and I didn't want to miss it. I just needed to get there before it was too late. Even if that meant showing up looking like a drowned rat from the heat. I started to heft the bags up again when suddenly someone slammed into me from behind. "Hey!" I exclaimed, holding tight to the bags as irritation rolled through me at people's carelessness. My irritation quickly turned to anger when I realized it had been no accident. The man that had run into me had a firm grasp on my purse, attempting to pull it from my shoulder with a grunt. "Oh, no you don't, asshole!" I tried to pull back, but the shoulder strap broke, freeing his treasure from my arm. The sudden snap sent me toppling backward into the street, garment bags flying out around me, littering the pavement and sidewalk. Fuck, my employer was not going to be happy about this. People had stopped on the street around me to gawk, but no one made an attempt to assist me. That freaking figured. I pushed the bags from the tops of my legs and started to stand. I was not going to let that asshole get away with my purse. All of my shit was in there. "Here, let me help you," a gruff, deep voice resonated above me as he grabbed my arm to help me to my feet before I could agree. I glanced down, and a blue hand had firmly taken a hold of my elbow as I stood. I cleared my throat as I turned. My eyes widened in surprise to see a Zayd in front of me. I had heard the rumors of these blue-skinned people, but had never actually seen one. Their community was closed off from outsiders, and their society was extremely secretive. The man standing before me was stunning, though, and made me wish I had met the Zayd sooner. His dark green eyes stared into mine, making me fidget as I tried to find relief. It was as if I had sweat rolling down my back again. His huge muscles bulged from underneath a fitted white t-shirt, making my throat go dry. I wonder what else the Zayd was packing. "Are you okay?" he asked, the question breaking me from my stupor. Yes," I replied, begging myself to pull my shit together. I wiped my hands on my dress to get the little pieces of gravel from the asphalt off. The asshole just took my purse. I let out a sound of disgust. Ugh, he fucking took my purse! I snapped out of my daze from meeting the Zayed and slipped out of my shoes, taking off running in the direction of the culprit. Watch my stuff! I yelled back over my shoulder, knowing the likelihood of someone actually staying to watch the stuff was slim to none. Still, I raced after the thief. I knew these streets all too well, and I had no doubt that a coward like him was going to take the easiest escape route. It was simple enough to cut the thief off and beat him at his exit strategy. I just had to get there first. Hey, I'll handle him, the deep-voiced Zayed called out, surprising me as he caught up even in my full-out sprint. You return and help them pick up whatever it is back there. He jerked his thumb behind us. The hell, I'm getting my shit back, I retorted, determined to retrieve my purse. I pressed forward, increasing my speed so I could catch this guy and retrieve my belongings. It had everything in it. My cell phone, keys, and most importantly, the address to where this meeting was supposed to happen this afternoon. This was my ticket to making sure I stayed off the streets and maybe finally getting a full-time position. Not to mention, I didn't even have a clue if the Zayed even knew the first thing about catching a criminal. I was not leaving it in his hands. I had been all kinds of flustered this afternoon, and I hadn't even looked at the paper the receptionist slipped to me. She had mentioned what building the meeting was in, but not what suite number. I had been too damned excited at the chance to meet another designer in person, so I informed her to let them know I would be there and just slid it into my purse. Stupid fucking move. I raced down the pavement, my feet slapping against the hard ground of my pursuit. I had wasted enough time already staring at the Zayed. If I was going to catch the culprit by surprise, I needed to hurry. Next to me, the Zayed easily kept pace, apparently determined to stay with me until the end. It struck me odd that he was insisting on helping me, especially considering everything I had heard about them said they had nothing to do with humans. I had no time to argue, though. If he wanted to trail along, who was I to stop him? Finally, I saw the offender just in front of us. We were gaining on him fast now. He must have thought he was in the clear and started to slow. Otherwise, I didn't think we would be catching up to him like we were. Stop, criminal! The Zayed bellowed from next to me. Yeah, because that always works, I huffed as I rolled my eyes at him. The purse snatcher glanced over his shoulder at us and took off even faster through the crowd, now seeing that he was being followed. This Zayed knew absolutely nothing about the streets. The criminal, as he called him, ruthlessly shoved people out of his way to duck down an alley in his attempt to evade our pursuit. My purse flapped behind him, its golden surface glinting under the sun, taunting me as he turned the corner. I will pursue him. Remain here, the Zayed demanded fiercely as he too turned the corner behind my assailant and disappeared. Well, joke was on him. I was going to get there first. I pushed hard, my thighs and lungs burning as I rounded the corner at the end of the block. Halfway down this street would be his exit point, and I wanted to be there to greet him. The alley he had chosen I knew well, as I had spent many nights there. It opened into a large center space and split off in two directions. To the right was clearly a dead end for him, blocked off by stacks of pallets and round barrels. He wouldn't even attempt to go that way. He would be able to see from the alley that it was impassable. His only other options would be to come this way or head back in the direction of Zayed. My bet was on him coming out exactly where I was standing rather than facing the Zayed. Even though the Zayed were rarely seen and little was known about them, most people feared them. After meeting one in person and seeing the size of him, I was beginning to understand why. It also didn't help that most people feared what they didn't know or didn't understand. I stopped short and leaned against the brick building for a moment while I caught my breath and waited for him to emerge. Just as I expected, the chain-link fence rattled as hands grappled at the top of the fence. Patiently, I waited, giving him a moment to fully commit to coming over. I watched as he slung one leg over the top of the fence, then turned his body to finish making his descent. I reached up and grabbed a handful of his jeans, yanking him to the ground, his body hitting the concrete with an audible thud. Don't you know it's not fucking nice to steal from a lady? I kicked him in the ribs as he tried to stand, making him cringe and fall back to the pavement, letting out his breath in a whoosh. He tried to stand and sprint away again, but my treacherous strap was going to be his undoing this time. I firmly snagged it out of the air and jerked backwards. The element of surprise was on my side as he lost his balance, tumbling back into me. I held tight to my purse and caught him smoothly with an uppercut to the jaw that sent him sprawling once more. The fence rattling again, and I glanced over to see the Zayed scaling it, agilely leaping to the ground from the top, his muscles bulging as he landed effortlessly next to my assailant. The Zayed gave him a disgusted look before he bent over and grabbed a fistful of his shirt. "Give the lady her purse back," he ordered, lifting the man from his position on the sidewalk as if he were weightless. he stammered, his eyes wide in shock as he stared into the face of the Zayed. His feet dangled from the ground like a rag doll, and he looked like he was petrified enough to piss himself on the spot. "Well?" he demanded again, shaking his captive back and forth, only reiterating the rag doll look. The asshole robber looked like he might just shit himself if this continued. I shouldn't have cared that he looked so terrified he had stolen from me, but the poor dude was scared so badly he couldn't even form a sentence. Not to mention, if the Zayed were observant at all, he would have seen that the guy didn't even have my purse to return. I decided to take pity on him, so I stepped forward. "Yeah, hi." I stood next to my dangling assailant and waved at the Zayed, forcing him to divert his gaze to me. I wanted to squirm under his intense green stare. Those eyes were so striking against his blue skin and pitch-black hair it unnerved me. So I already got my purse back from the asshole. He has nothing left to return. I lifted my gold purse, dangling it in front of him from the torn strap. "You can drop him any time now." He narrowed his eyes at me as if trying to understand what I was saying. "You retrieved your stolen property by yourself?" he asked in disbelief. "Right here." I lifted my purse higher and shook it to emphasize my words. The Zayed stared at me. Confusion clearly flickered across his face. "How?" His brows furrowed together. "Look, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were friends with the Zayed. It's all there. I won't do it again." Now visibly trembling, he begged for forgiveness, still sagging inches from the ground. "Just let him go. I'm pretty sure he learned his lesson about purse snatching." I looked up at the purse thief as he gripped the Zayed's wrist, vigorously nodding his head in agreement. Without warning, the Zayed dropped him to the ground, and his legs crumpled beneath him as he hit the pavement. Instantly, he scrambled back up and took off down the street as fast as he could. "How?" he asked again, bewildered. I raised an eyebrow. "I was faster than you, obviously. Next time, Zayed, pick up the pace." I shrugged and shot him a grin. "Thanks for trying, though." This time it was the Zayed who was speechless as he had just stared at me. "Okay, well, this has been fun, but I need to go get the rest of my stuff from the road." I turned to make my way back to my discarded garment bags. They were probably still littering the streets. No one did anything to help anyone anymore. That was, if they weren't stolen. I picked up my pace, hoping if I were quick enough that not everything would be taken or ruined. Sweat poured down my forehead, making the tiny amount from before the chase seem like nothing. Coupled with the chase and now my fast pace, the faucet was on for sure. My dress clung to me, making me feel sticky and gross. Southern girls don't sweat. My ass. Even my fucking sweat was sweating now. I only hoped that I could find some sort of bathroom to make myself presentable before my scheduled meeting. I was shocked as up ahead yet another Zayed bent over collecting my garment bags from the street, piling them neatly on the sidewalk. I frowned, finding this one every bit as sexy as the last one. Tall and lean, his toned blue muscles shone vibrantly under the afternoon sun. I would have never thought the Zayed would be this attractive, but I would be happy to meet a few more at this rate. I jogged over to him. "Thank you so much. You have no clue how much this means." I joined him in pulling the last few garment bags from the street. "I haven't, miss," he said, coming closer and taking the bags from my hand to pile them with the others. The new Zayed looked up and his eyes met mine. I was surprised to find that they were as piercing blue as the others were green. If it weren't for the blue skin, this man would very much have that gorgeous boy next door look about him. I swallowed hard. Thank you," I squeaked out. Great. All it took for me to act like a prepubescent teen again was a sexy-ass blue dude, and my voice went to squeaking. Cue the pimples any moment now. "Any time, miss," he replied, grinning from ear to ear, little dimples showing at the corners of his mouth. Oh my fuck, was he cute. He took a step forward and outstretched his hand. I assumed to greet me, but I never found out as he tripped over the corner of one of my bags and went tumbling into me. The two of us went sprawling back into the street, his lean muscled body landing on top of mine. "Oh, geez, I'm really sorry," he said, flushing as he shifted to stand. "I'm so flipping clumsy. I swear it wasn't intentional." I groaned inwardly, pushing myself over to stand, another bruise already forming on my ass. I really needed to stop finding myself in this position. I started to push to my feet when the blare of a horn sounded and the sound of screeching tires filled my ears. A large bus hurtled toward me, laying on the horn and brake dust billowing out from beneath the tires, but it was still not slowing fast enough. I scrambled to my feet, rushing to make it to the sidewalk before the bus struck me. Suddenly, I was grabbed by the wrist and yanked out of the street, hitting a hard wall of muscle behind me. Seconds later, the bus hurtled by. The scent of burning brakes accompanied the whoosh of air that reached me as it passed only inches from where I now stood. I let out a huge breath and sagged in the arms of the person who had saved me, not even caring how roughly they had grabbed my wrist, only that they had literally saved my life. "It looks like I was fast enough this time," a gruff voice whispered in my ear, sending tingles down my spine. I spun around, knowing without a doubt who it was, and swallowed hard as I stared into the deep green eyes of the Zayed.